Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining this webinar today. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. I'm not sure. I think we have representation from a lot of different places. So welcome. My name is Brent Carbonneau. I'm the Managing Director for Field Programs for NetHope. So I'm leading the global field programs that we're running. And thanks for joining us today. We're going to cover, obviously, the Venezuelan migrant crisis and some other topics. But first, we'll give a brief summary of the evolution of the situation in Venezuela and surrounding countries that are receiving the migrants that are departing from Venezuela. A little bit of a recap of our work to date. We'll cover a proposed plan that will help the plan that we have to help the NGO community support migrants that are leaving Venezuela into Colombia and other countries along the migrant route like Brazil and Ecuador. And then if we have time, we hope to have time, we'll talk about some of the other emergency and crisis response work that we're doing, as well as a plan we have around a bigger preparedness proposal that we're putting together. But first, we should walk through some housekeeping rules, perhaps. If everyone could keep their phone muted, that would be great. That'll help reduce any background noise. Wanted to let everyone know as well that we'll be recording this call, and that everyone will have access to the recording on the Solutions Center once we're done, and we'll send an email out to everyone that will follow up with a link to that. And feel free along the way to put any questions you have in the chat window. And we'll, like I said, we'll try to leave some time at the end for everyone to ask some questions. And if you put anything in the chat window, we'll try to address it at that point. A couple more introductions. It won't just be my voice you'll be hearing today on the call. You'll also be hearing from a couple of other members of the team. Rami Shaker, who leads our emergency response field work. Rami spent a lot of time in the region in the past almost year, and he can give us a lot of firsthand information on what we've done, what he's seen, and what it's like to work in the region, and what's really needed to move things forward there. We'll also have Jennifer Childs, who leads our NetHope fundraising and partner engagement side of things at NetHope, and she'll be recapping the funding appeal for the work we want to do in the region. But just to quickly move into some of the background information on the state in Venezuela. Next slide, please, Madeline. Thank you. You'll see a couple of images here on the screen. As most of you already know, I would assume Venezuela is becoming quite unstable due to the deterioration of the economy, the soaring inflation, rampant crime, and political insecurity. There's a lot of reasons for it, but we won't get into too many of those. I think that's pretty clear. But the rate of migration because of these issues is picking up dramatically. With the migration starting in 2015, you can see on the slide, it started then with almost 700,000 people leaving, but by November 2018, there was 3 million people leaving from Venezuela, and at this point now we're up to 4 million in July 2019, and that's 13% of all of the 31 million people that are living in or were living in Venezuela have now left, which is huge. And this crisis is actually now regarded as the largest recorded migrant or refugee crisis in the Americas. And by the end of this year, we expect there to be another million that have left, which would put it up to 15% of the whole population. And obviously, this crisis is getting increasingly more complex, both in Venezuela and outside. The sheer magnitude of the migration is huge, with over 4 million people leaving at this point already, and the pace is just going to increase, it seems. The migrants are not just fleeing to Colombia, but they're also fleeing to other countries in the region. There's a path of migration to places like Ecuador, Peru, Brazil, Chile. You can see on the map on the right-hand side that they obviously have been leaving for destinations outside of South America, but there's a mass exodus to the neighboring countries mostly. And of course, there's a large humanitarian presence in the region, and trying to coordinate that response, distributed response with a large number of vulnerable people on the move is very, very difficult. But I think I'll leave that more to Rami to get into the details of responding to this emergency. So I'll hand it over to Rami now.
Thank you, Brent. Can you please confirm you can hear me?
Yep, loud and clear, Rami.
Thank you. So hello, everyone, and thanks for joining. Just to continue a bit on what Brent started with, the history. I have seen firsthand a huge influx of migrants crossing the border areas, lots of families, whole families, of course. There's many who travel by foot for more than 1,000 miles. They're known as the Los Caminantes. And of course, waiting in line on the border in both directions. I had that experience and talked to a lot of migrants as well. And of course, the rest of the teams who deployed also have seen, how grave the situation is. Some of the main challenges are around, imagine a family just fleeing home, where do you work? Where do you stay? Shelter, and there's not really camps for refugees. There are migrants in transit, so a few days at most is what a lot of the shelters are offering. Food, of course, health services, and how do you get advice on where to go next? So our mission in the last 6 months, when we started in deploying in December of 2018, has been really to put in place communication networks for the migrants and also for the agencies who are responding to support the migrants. We'll talk more about how communication network is important in itself, but first I wanted to cover what we've done in terms of the Wi-Fi networks. Next, please. Thank you, Madeline. So if you focus from the right to left, because this is the flow of migrants from the border of Venezuela going towards Colombia. So when we first did our assessments, of course, we worked very closely with our NetHope members who reached out to us and said we need connectivity in a lot of places. We were overwhelmed with the number of sites that they came back with. So we had to sit there and work closely with members and other local NGOs on how do we prioritize these sites, and most of them were along the border. So where several entry points are, we worked with about 34 organizations, including NetHope members, local NGOs, UN agencies, and the types of places that we've connected are shelters, food distribution, clinics and hospitals, registration and training centers. So to date, we've connected, I say over 80, because as we speak, we're deploying in Arauca. I believe the number is around 85 now. And we have over 110,000 unique devices connected. Now, just in the border area, we've deployed over 60 sites. So you could see a lot of the activity happens around there. Next, please. So how are migrants and NGOs using our networks? I think there's three different main areas. One of them is, of course, connecting with family and friends. If we go back to Greece with our experience with refugees, we realized that the thing refugees valued the most was the ability to use the network to connect with their family and friends. And that could be with WhatsApp, Facebook, or Skype. But refugees and migrants want to connect with their family and friends and tell them, I made it, I'm safe. And they also want to find out how they are, or they want to find out those who've moved on, how they're doing, and get some advice about potential destinations. It's the same in Colombia. We have the same situation. Many Venezuelans are leaving behind everything. And just within Venezuela, to get the Colombian border, sometimes you have to travel on foot for 1 or 2 months. So, of course, they want to be able to communicate with their families and friends. And that network offers them, once they cross that border, it offers them that opportunity to do so. I'm sure so would you, and so would I. We always want to connect with our families and let them know we're okay. But it's really heartbreaking, some of the scenes out there and some of the stories you hear. It's very, very difficult to capture in words. I'll just mention a couple of things. And then we'd like to show a Facebook video that can actually give you a much better picture from what I can with what I'm about to share. But some of the examples I'm talking about is, for example, when I was at one of the main bridges in Cucuta, I was talking to a gentleman about why he's leaving, and he told me that just 2 days ago he was at gunpoint and they stole his car, which was the only means of income. I also saw an elderly woman in a wheelchair who could hardly lift her head, and she was leaving her home and her country to seek medication. And then in Maicao, which is also on the top border of Venezuela and Colombia, you see lots of young pregnant women who were taken advantage of along the way just in order to survive. And they have children who they're going to raise on their own while in transit. So it's really quite difficult to experience, to be there and to see all of this. But I'd like to turn to what Facebook has produced in a video, which really captures a good story about the work that's being done there. And Facebook has been very key partners in Colombia. Thank you. So, and also if there's anyone on the call who's been there and wants to come out and say something a couple of minutes after the video, please feel free to share your experience as well. So we're going to put everyone on mute and I'm gonna kindly ask Madeline to please roll the video.
Mi motivo de viaje fueron mis hijas. Me vine por su futuro.
Un viaje muy largo, con miedo. Migration is probably the subject of our times. We've been having a migration crisis from Syria, in the Mediterranean, but the largest influx of people coming from one country to another currently at this moment in the world is from Venezuela to Colombia.
Hay una crisis económica que para nadie es una mentira. Los alimentos no se consiguen, las medicinas no se consiguen, los hospitales no tienen insumos.
Quiero a mi Venezuela que nos ayude, porque queremos salir de esto.
Cada migrante que uno acoge, uno está pensando también en esta frase que el propio Cristo dijo: yo era migrante y usted me acogió en su casa.
Colombia has received in the past year and a half over 1 million migrants. We don't have the ability to solve the structural causes of this migration crisis. What we have to do is have a comprehensive package of solutions for these migrants. And one of the solutions is, of course, connectivity. Many of them might not have what to eat in the next meal, but they do have a smartphone in their pockets.
Todavía tengo mi familia allí en Caracas. Tengo mi esposa, tengo mis hijos. Para hablar con mi familia utilizo WiFi por WhatsApp.
Yo mantengo el contacto con mis hijas, con mi mamá por WhatsApp. Y es fuerte hablar con nuestros hijos porque mayormente se ponen a llorar.
People have different reasons that they need connectivity. You know, how do I get from point A to point B? What services are available? You know, where can I go find food? Where can I sleep for the night?
In a sense, I don't know that I would consider this, volunteering. Of course, it's voluntary, but it feels more like an obligation or like a sort of moral duty. I can do this, there's a need, I'm available, so I must do it.
NetHope is made up of 57 international NGOs, Mercy Corps, NRC, Oxfam, Save the Children. When this happened, Facebook stood up and said, we've got people we want to help deploy. So Facebook sent a team down to Bogota to work with NetHope to install networks.
If you have a hurricane or an earthquake and internet is gone, we build connectivity where there isn't anything.
My dad was a migrant from Mexico to California, and when I heard about the NetHope response for the Venezuelan migrant crisis, I immediately put my hand up to volunteer.
Building a whole network from the ground up means we walk in, we don't know what connectivity they have. Do they have internet? Is it fast enough to support migrants coming through that maybe haven't had connectivity for days or weeks? So once we sort of analyze the available internet, then we'll install a router, we'll connect that to our Wi-Fi system, and then Wi-Fi access points.
When we put in a network, we're not just putting in connectivity, we're putting in intrusion detection, we're putting in malware protection. We're protecting the people that are on our networks that are probably the most vulnerable. The work we do is not going to solve the problems that are happening or the cause of the problems. It's going to help the people who are affected by those problems that are here on the ground, no fault of their own. I've seen kids that we call it a 1,000-foot stare. And then once connectivity comes, it's something that's familiar to them. It kind of gives them a reach back to their communities, back to their families. And give me a second.
No worries.
These are kind of the things that still drive me. They still drive me today.
Conectarme con mi familia es como quitarme el peso. Me dan esperanza y vuelvo y me levanto.
Yo he caminado por Bogotá y donde quiera me veo con un venezolano y lo abrazo como un hermano. No lo conozco, pero cuando hablo con él, cuando siento el acento venezolano, lo abrazo. No soy yo solo. Son miles y miles de venezolanos. Son miles de venezolanos.
Thank you, Madeline. This is really tough to see because that's what you see everywhere, especially on the borders. You have migrants who are trying to survive and they have a long and very uncertain road ahead. And you just keep asking yourself, how is this happening and what can we do to help? So I appreciate what Facebook has done there with the video, but of course, more importantly, with the great work that they did with us in Bogota. Next, please. So we talked about connecting with families and friends, which is important, as we saw. What else is also very important? We call it information as aid, and it has a very high return on investment. This we have seen over and over again. If we go back to Puerto Rico as well, we've seen that it was very key. Refugee and economic migrants present a big challenge for humanitarian agencies and host governments. There's a huge influx coming in. So of course, NGOs are providing food, water, medical supplies, which is great, but that's not enough. Migrants need information. They need news that they can use and give them the ability to make decisions on where they want to go next. So it's really important that we share valuable information with them. So what we've done is we've been working very closely with our members and other agencies. At the moment, we have put a landing page to the networks when you first connect, so you get redirected to an application that NRC has put together, and they have worked closely with the government of Colombia and other international agencies to be sure that migrants are getting the most accurate and useful information. So this information could be around the visa process, and it's by the way, it's where you're going from to. So you could select Venezuela to Peru, or you can select Colombia to Brazil, and it gives you the relevant information. And it has information about the services, the asylum options, what type of shelter they can stay in, and some basic rights and protection for these vulnerable migrants in transit. So far, in just over 6 months, with around 85 networks, we've had 110,000 unique devices benefiting, we would say, between 300 and 400,000 migrants. Why do we say that? It's around 30% of those who have smartphones, but we've seen them and how keen they are sharing their smartphones with others. So it's not just benefiting the person and the family who's got the smartphone, but it's also sharing that information with those who don't. And we're also very excited about working with Mercy Corps, who delivered with IRC a very successful solution in Europe during the Syrian refugee crisis, supporting over 1 million refugees in their transition with valuable information. So we'll continue to do some work in this area. Next, please. So a third big benefit is really around the coordination and the support that the NGOs and other actors working in the region. The investment aid just in this year will exceed over $1 billion. Without communication network, a lot of these investments won't really realize their full potential. So this shows the number of members in the different countries. You can see there's between 20 and 35 member organizations in Colombia, Peru, Brazil, Ecuador. We work very closely with the members who know firsthand that the work that they're doing is very central to this response. So we've received information about sites in the other countries, and it's our hope to expand the operation into the region and support the the migrants in transition throughout. Next, please. So I hope this gave you a taste of what communication networks can do and how vital it is, especially in such a large-scale response. This really helps ease the stress on the migrants themselves, giving them the ability to connect with their families, giving them some sense of direction of where they're going next. And of course, it helps the NGOs and the responding agencies to coordinate better as well. Next, please. So NetHope cannot do this on their own. A very huge thank you to the partners and the members. Start off with Cisco. Cisco is, I cannot thank them enough. They really are our implementing partner, been with us all the time. And they have contributed with cash, equipment, and staffing. Number of Cisco TACOps deployments have come through, and that team has been fantastic, and we're ever so grateful to them. Facebook has also stepped up. We did a training in Panama last year of some Facebook participants. Some of those participants deployed to Colombia, and they supported, of course, with cash as well and staffing. So we're very excited about our partnership with Facebook, given the amount of emergencies that we're dealing with. So it's really good to know that we have some capable and skilled and experienced and trained personnel from Facebook who can also deploy with us. Microsoft also supports us with cash. Microsoft has been fantastic with giving us some funding just to get out and do some assessments, and that's really great because those moments are very important. Ericsson Response, we started working with in Puerto Rico, a great team as well. They focus a lot on the distribution of the wireless networks. They work very well with the Cisco TACOps team. It's great to see their contribution in equipment and staffing as well. One we're very excited about is Team Rubicon, not only because they're great at what they do, but they're also members. And Team Rubicon deployed with NetHope to deliver these services in Cucuta. And recently, we're very excited about a new partnership with MSB, who's supported by the Swedish government. And we currently have a personnel there for 3 months, an engineer who's looking after maintaining the network, and as we speak, is responsible for the increasing number in Arauca. So we thank you very much to the partners. But of course, I want to thank our members as well. We cannot do without our members. There's several members who supported us, but I want to sincerely thank 3 members who have really gone out of their way to support NetHope. NRC, Save the Children, and Mercy Corps all have supported us with security reports, logistics, assessment trips, have offered their meeting rooms to us. Mercy Corps received equipment on NetHope's behalf because NetHope does not have a physical office in country, which was a huge help. NRC is supporting with storing the equipment. Save the Children is supporting with invoicing from the local service providers. So as you can see, NetHope cannot do this on its own. We're all really one team working towards a common goal. So Sincerely, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. Next. So as the work that we've done so far is good, but there's more to be done. As Brent mentioned earlier, the migration flows are accelerating. There's 1 million in the last 6 months and another million in the next 6 months. So not only the number is getting bigger, but they're moving deeper into Colombia and into neighboring countries. This map that you see here is from UNHCR and IOM, and the numbers show what the expectation of the flow into the different countries is. So the funding appeal that we're presenting today is for another 100 sites in the next 60 to 100 days after the funding. We will go from 80 or 85 to 180 or 185 sites, but more importantly, we'll go from serving around between 300,000 and 400,000 migrants to over 800,000 migrants, which is very important right now, and it's very much needed. We have locations already identified. Of course, the priorities may change and we have to be flexible, but our main objective here is to make sure that the highest 100 sites where the highest need is and the highest impact of locations, not just in Colombia, but also in the neighboring countries. Given where we're sitting right now and after what we've done so far, it's extremely difficult to turn away from an opportunity to help those who are very vulnerable when we all can. I'm going to take a breather now. I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer, who will talk a bit more about the funding appeal. Thank you. Over to you, Jennifer.
Thanks so much, Rami, and just checking that everybody can hear me okay.
Loud and clear, Jennifer.
Super. Rami, congratulations to you, to the team, and especially to our NetHope partners and members that have made all of this work possible. As you can see, we have an overall program budget of $1.8 million. We've received commitments to date that sum in about $1.3 million. And our remaining funding needs are around $450K, which of course we hope to be able to close with the support of the folks on this call. Our funding needs really break down into four areas. The first being equipment, which is mostly telecommunications equipment, but also some solar power solutions for locations that have no power or unreliable power. Internet service. We almost always procure connectivity through one of the local ISPs, internet service providers. The dollars are going also to support staffing in the field and, of course, staffing to support the field teams themselves. So again, in sum, our appeal today is for $450,000 in additional funding to, again, support an additional 100 sites that together will allow over 800,000 migrants to have access to connectivity in the region. As many of you know, we've been building these kinds of networks for many years. We've been doing this work around the world, and we're very confident in the figures. And of course, there's a lot of detail behind the numbers that we're more than happy to share out to should you have an interest in learning more. And of course, I welcome those conversations. I have gone a bit fast through this slide. So if you have any questions, I'll just take a moment to allow you to digest this information and feel free to ping questions across. Okay, well with that, before we wrap up, I'd like to return the ball back to Rami to chat briefly about some of the emergencies and responses that we're working on. Rami, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Jennifer. So we wanted to use this opportunity to very quickly share other areas NetHope is working in. I'd like to start with DRC. WHO recently declared an Ebola outbreak emergency, and members have already been reaching out to us for support. So NetHope is seeking support to respond to the emergency and support the agencies who are responding to the Ebola outbreak, mainly around connectivity and power solutions. A lot of this is happening around the eastern part of DRC. Refugees in Thailand and Bangladesh, we have several members also supporting refugees in Bangladesh and in Thailand. Most of these camps are in remote areas where there's a lack of power and connectivity, so we're also seeking support to address their connectivity and power needs. And then Brent touched on that earlier. We have been working on a global disaster preparation where it includes pre-positioning of equipment, capacity building of the first responders. So those are members who are on the ground. Really, they are the first responders. So giving them the skills and putting the equipment in the hands of those in the high disaster-prone countries. Also, rapid response funds. So this rapid response funds allows us to quickly, within 72 hours, deploy for an assessment trip and scale if needed. So right before the hurricane season, our response will really depend on how well we are prepared. Thank you. I'll turn it back to you, Jennifer.
So with that, we've concluded the information sharing portion of the webinar, and we are happy to take questions at this time. I see one here coming in. Let's see. We have one coming in from the chat window. Perhaps it would be good for Rami or Brent to comment on this. The question is, are we seeing more emergencies these days or just more publicity about emergencies?
Brent, I think you're the best person to talk about natural disasters.
Sure. I mean, yeah, I guess it depends on how you define an emergency or a crisis. I think that there's a big shift now towards migrant crises around the world that we haven't seen probably 5-10 years ago. I don't think that, and natural disasters as well. Maybe there's more kind of weather impacting events like hurricanes and typhoons than we might have seen before. But yeah, I guess there's a trend upwards. I don't know if there's a cause or not, but there's definitely a trend.
Giving time for anybody else to add in a question before we wrap up our call. All right, well, with that, thank you everybody for attending. Please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions about this presentation and about the work in the region. My email address is on the slide above. We also plan on reaching out to you to share more detailed information around proposals related to the Venezuela work. And we welcome, of course, any conversations that you might invite us to have to learn more about our work on the ground. Thank you all so much for taking the time to join us today. We really, really appreciate the work that you do, and we appreciate your support.